Mr. Beast's Dystopia Games, Part 2. Spoiler alert, I've only watched through episodes 2 and 3, and I will discuss them here. If you don't want to know what happens, you got to do the obvious thing. Just turn it off. So in Part 1 of my Mr. Beast Dystopia Games series, I introduced Jimmy Donaldson, the world's most successful YouTuber, who is holding up a mirror to our fascination with financial power dynamics, desperation, loyalty, and betrayal. The Beast Games feels very much of the moment. Episode 2 begins with 493 contestants who now have an expected value with respect to the $5 million payout of $10,143. Contestants are now located in a made-up location, Beast City, which is like a 12-year-old's drawing of the Las Vegas Strip crossed with a concentration camp. It has gilded letters on a marquee-lit facade of fake buildings. It features Spartan dorms for the expendable and doomed. What happens in Beast City is so much fun, everyone, that I could die, is my own marketing slogan to increase tourism here and in the future. That slogan's for free. The next one I might charge for. So the floor challenges. Contestants are divided up by a random colored token. Without further information, they're given a chance to swap the tokens with someone else. It seems a few do so. There is no strategy in the swap since they don't know what it is for. It's only just about later wistful regret. Those tokens establish to which one of 4 floor challenges contestants are assigned within a floor of one of Beast City's ersatz buildings. The challenges set up a competition between the right and left side of the same floor. The losing side of each floor will be eliminated. None of the 4 competitions are especially scintillating, but taken together will result in eliminating about half of the contestants. So the fourth floor is the first one. Hope You Can Catch is what it's called. A yellow team and a white team on the 4th floor of the building each attempt to catch balls that are dropped from the ceiling by Mr. Beast's faceless guards. In theory, this involves cooperation between teammates. In reality, it results in an eighth of the players just being eliminated because of the butterfingers of one teammate on the first ball drop through basically no fault of their own. Dumb luck determines the fate of many would be my homily on this one were I Mr. Beast. 431 challenge players remain after this challenge with an EV of $11,601. Next is floor 2, which is called Less is More. This involves more psychological fuckery, and it's really the only interesting one of the floor challenges. By interesting, I mean it's especially cruel. Once again, Mr. Beast wants to play with the idea of altruistic action for the group with no particular personal reward, only loss. He sets up the condition that whichever side induces more players to self-eliminate from the competition will move on. Incidentally, as you can imagine, this is a recipe for bullying. So as an added twist, the sides cannot see each other, but they can communicate through a telephone. Altruism with an EV of $11,601 makes 0 sense. Some psychological pressure gets applied by group members. A few feel compelled as a result to drop out. White team eliminated 4 people, green team eliminated 3, so white continues on. But again, altruists here in the Beast Games are just losers. They're weak. They're not particularly honored, valued, or remembered. It's just sad. Bullying works, Mr. Beast might have said if he were to offer the moral lesson of this challenge. With 366 players remaining, their EV climbed to $13,661. Floor 3, Get Ready to Throw Down is the name of this one. Contestants on the 3rd floor of his fake building attempt to throw a giant ping pong ball into an oversized cup. The team with the most balls dropped in the cup after they've all thrown moves on. The MacGuffin in this competition is a separate gold-colored $100,000 prize cup. Going for that cup involves costing your own team the chance to score during your turn. Mr. Beast again wanted to test the idea of selfishness versus team orientation, but nobody takes the bait. After purple team wins with the most balls in the cup, 305 remaining players have an updated EV of 16,393. Floor 1, Use Your Brain is the name of that one. The 2 teams on the 1st floor answer trivia questions with the worst performing team eliminated. The answers are all super obvious, like what's the biggest animal on the planet? This shouldn't have required multiple choice, but indeed 3 choices were offered. Where does the Mona Lisa hang? And which country gifted the Statue of Liberty to the US? And more than anything, this trivia betrays Mr. Beast's intended audience for the Beast Games as tweeners. So anyone older than that watching this will be stunned at the wrong answers. Now that you've lost, do you regret not taking the $100,000? Mr. Beast asks one of the losers of this team trivia challenge. Because in addition to cruelly eliminating people, he would like them to dwell on their regret. 242 remaining players now have an expected value of 20,661. And so we get to the captain's challenge. This is actually the most interesting moment of the combined episodes 2 and 3, probably of episodes 1, 2, and 3. Following the elimination of half the group through those previous floor challenges, the teams are somewhat bonded. They also now have information and an increased sense of camaraderie about each other. They are asked to use their past experience to select a captain from each team, with Mr. Beast explicitly letting the teams know that the captains will be tempted to betray them. And that was a good warning. The captains are selected by their teams, presumably for their good character, to the extent that could be determined by the group interactions over the previous 2 days. The 4 chosen captains climb up on an elevated stage with a giant screen above their heads. Mr. Beast explains that he will bribe them with increasingly large amounts of money to defect. Defection in this case means taking the money on the screen, permanently eliminating your teammates who elected you to this position, and finally actually staying in the game, still eligible for the $5 million prize. And it is a huge bribe. In dramatic Mr. Beast style, the screen starts ticking upward with increasing dollar amounts, with the captains able to claim the prize merely by just slamming a button. The screen starts on a small amount, just $5,000. And even if they're not doing EV calculations in their head, as I'm sure all of you would be doing, it of course doesn't make sense to betray for less than 20,000 since that's their current EV. A tremendous amount of drama is packed into the final 5 minutes of this episode as the bribe sort of rockets upward to its eventual final stopping point of $1 million. Not taking the bribe is strong counter evidence to Mr. Beast's horrible setup in Challenge 4 of the first episode. That's the one in which he philosophized that, quote, the ones you trust the most end up being the ones you should trust the least, which was super triggering for me because he set up the conditions of that game so that he would always be right with his cynical philosophy. Episode 2 ends on a cliffhanger of this captain's bribery challenge. For my part, I was convinced that 2 of the captains would betray their group for personal gain because based on not much else except their sweaty faces and the camera's close-up of their difficult choice. But we learn in the beginning of episode 3 that none of the 4 captains took the bribe. They turned down the chance to pocket $1 million and continue on as competitors because they had promised not to betray their group. As a question of logic, turning down $1 million on an EV of $20,662 is pretty wild. It doesn't make sense. As a matter of character, however, it does make sense. Each of the captains was specifically chosen by their group for their leadership, which in this case primarily meant remaining untempted by a large bribe. For the record, I have thought quite a bit about what I would do as a captain in that scenario. Would I betray my group for $1 million, then keep playing the game, knowing I've become a villain both to the group that selected me and to the future television watching audience? Or do I stay firm in my commitment to the group that selected me and give up what is an extraordinary opportunity for easy money? Plus the idea that it's not even an EV play since you get to continue on playing for the $5 million prize. In fact, with the ability to eliminate your own team, about a quarter of the remaining Beast Games competitors, you would vastly increase your own EV while also rewarding you with a huge financial win. Money comes and goes, but integrity and honor is earned, shouts one of the captains to his team in the aftermath of the challenge. It is a bright spot in contrast to what had seemed a monolithically cynical message about money, winners, and losers in the Beast Games and in our society at large. I was pleasantly surprised that Mr. Beast allowed this outcome to occur and that he didn't interfere in order to engineer further misery, betrayal, cruelty. 4 people, selected by their peers for their perceived incorruptibility, stood up to the test. It was a nice moment. And then we finally get to, in most of episode 3, is the Cube's Trial Elimination Challenge. The next challenge begins with the same number of competitors as those that ended the Floors Challenge. That is to say, 242 remaining players with an EV of 20,661. The bulk of episode 3 focused on a nasty challenge meant to elicit maximum emotional pain. In part 1 of the challenge, competitors joined forces with 2 teammates of their own choosing in a fun sack race relay. Mr. Beast tells the viewing audience, us, not them, not the competitors, but us, that the true purpose of this was to have people choose their friends and bond with them for the purposes of pitting them against one another in a follow-up phase. The follow-up involved trapping the groups of 3 in a cube from which only 2 could emerge still in the game. 1 out of each group of 3 who entered the cube was forced to self-eliminate by handcuffing themselves to the wall, or else all 3 would be eliminated. This is as good a place as any to emphasize again how much fascist and prison imagery Mr. Beast likes to play with in his show. Faceless guards lead each triad handcuffed into a cube that served as their multi-hour prison until they eliminate one of their friends. Handcuffs and a type of prison phone are the only decorations within each cube, which otherwise resemble the sort of like insane asylum white box of Hollywood's imagination. It's grim, as almost all Mr. Beast imagery tends to be. We follow these triads as they spend hours together trying to come up with a method of eliminating 1/3 of their own number. Most end up choosing a game of chance or a simple game of skill to determine elimination. Why did it have to be us 3 together? Why couldn't it be somebody else that I didn't like? Wails one of the contestants. The answer, of course, is that Mr. Beast, and I guess in service to an audience that enjoys this, made this game as awful as possible for kicks. As is somewhat predictable, some people act like jerks, unwilling to abide by the game after they are eliminated. Others manipulate their cube mates to force the others' elimination. Because of the previous $1 million captain's bribery challenge, we care quite a bit that one of the captains, the military vet, is eliminated from his cube. He had even been given a chance at immunity by his 2 cube mates because of his unwillingness to exchange $1 million for betraying the group that believed in him back in episode 2. Of course, Mr. Beast asks if he regrets not taking the bribe. He says he does not. And weirdly, I believe him. By hook or by crook, by dice roll or basketball shot, the triads find a member to eliminate. Lots of crying ensues. 7 cubes couldn't come to any agreement within the time limit, and all 3 of those people in the triads were eliminated. Cruelty is absolutely, once again, the point of this challenge, with the added fun enhancement of prison and fascist imagery. A perfect game for our times. At the end of this challenge, 149 players remain with an updated EV of $33,557. So as a teaser for the next episode, Mr. Beast presented the remaining contestants the next day after that had happened with a giant golden box. Before he could say what was in it or how people will be given a chance to compete for the prize inside the box, he mentions that the first person who touches it will get the prize inside. One of the competitors, established over the course of the previous episode as a bullying manipulator, steps forward without consulting anyone and touches the box. This awards him with a ride on a helicopter to the next episode's destination. It also gives him the right to invite 5 other competitors on his helicopter ride. He invites his brother, who we had previously observed during the fascist cube as another fellow bully, as well as his captain who resisted the $1 million bribe in episode 2. That final part, at least, seemed fairly human.